Since 2010, the Chinese authorities have been preparing to implement the social credit system that would cover the entire territory of China. It was supposed to be launched by 2020, but so far, it is still in a testing phase. In 2014, the Chinese State Council released the guidelines of social credit system construction, outlining the goal of establishing a basic social credit system by 2020. Since 2014, many test programs have been launched and experiments have been carried out on the operation of the system in smaller areas, usually within the reach of the city. One of the first such experiments was carried out in 2010 in Suining, a city with a population of over 3 million, located in Sichuan province. It was called Da Zhong Xin Yong, in English called mass credit. Each citizen got 1,000 credits to start regardless of their status or previous credit history. They could be lowered for violating certain norms. For example, drinking and driving lost 50 points, having a child without appropriate documents and permits cost 35 points, and failure to pay the loan installments from 30 to 50 points. They could be recovered 2 to 5 years after their loss. On the basis of these points, citizens were similarly assigned to one of 4 categories, from A, the highest, to D, the lowest. Correspondingly, with the height of the class were proper privileges and penalties. For example, A-class citizens had easier access to better jobs, more convenient transportation options, and even easier credit conditions. On the contrary, D-class citizens had it much tougher, from compulsory political revision in order to join the party, more difficult examinations, and more complicated across to even low-level clerical positions, benefits, or even business licenses. This gave rise to the emergence of blacklists, which will be described in more detail later on. However, this classification was subjected to great criticism not only abroad but also in China itself, which was why it was abandoned later. After this failed trial, many other trial systems came in place, but still there wasn't one that worked without a hitch. That being said, the system is evolving rapidly. By the end of 2020 and during the early months of 2021, numerous social credit information catalogs were issued in an attempt to standardize data collection processes within specific sectors and regions. In December 2020, a first draft of a social credit law was circulated for internal review. Meanwhile, the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party issued a new roadmap to 2025 for the construction of a rule of law society, in which the social credit system is set to play a key role. Scoring and feedback system. In China, the need for classification seems even stronger than in Western countries. Very often the division is based on a credit system, a good example of which is the Chinese education system. Primary school children receive points for all kinds of tests, not grades, as it is most often the case in Western systems. Thanks to this, they can compare each other more accurately, as well as determine the best and worst students with an accuracy to 1 point of difference. In addition, it increases the element of competition, which becomes much stronger with the point system than with the grades on the scale. Social credit system was based on this need for classification. This system also takes into consideration the fact that in recent years China has transformed into a technological superpower. Its citizens have become completely dependent on modern technology and mobile application. Since 2015, several of the largest companies dealing with application programs, including a company belonging to the Alibaba Group holding, that is Tencent and Sesame Group, have carried out a test of the functioning of the social credit system. In 2020, it was to be implemented and became mandatory for every Chinese citizen. The program is supposed to collect data about each user, then on the basis of the information the algorithm makes a score. The social credit system is based on the mechanism of operation of many other well-known applications around the world, for example Uber, Uber, or even Tinder. It's called a scoring and feedback system. Recommendation mechanisms in Southeast Asia seem to play an even greater role than in the Western world. This phenomenon was very well illustrated in the movie Parasite, a 4-time Oscar winner by Korean director Bong Joon-ho. The recommendation system plays a key role there. The employment of an employee takes place through the recommendation of a given person and not verification of his actual skills.
정말 만나보시겠어요?
I'm deadly serious.
믿는 사람 소개로 연결. 이게 베스트인 것 같아요. 일종의 뭐랄까, 믿음의 벨트?
There is a very well-known term for it in Chinese language, which is 关系, which basically means relations. You can even Google it in English as 关系, and you should be able to find quite a few results. Why is it called such a credit system? To analyze the social credit system in more detail, it is worth looking at its name in original Mandarin dialect to avoid any misconceptions when translated. In Chinese, it has a very positive connotation, while when translated, it becomes a completely different story. In Chinese, the system is called 社会信用体系. The first word that appears here is 社会, in English, society. It is worth mentioning that this word appears in an official name for current Chinese system, which is 中国特色社会主义. China Characteristic Society Doctrine. Socialism with Chinese characteristics. So, society doctrine here is translated as socialism. Another word in this name is 信用, which in English has been translated as credit. In Mandarin, it does not only mean credit, but also honesty and integrity. The last word of the name of the social credit system is 体系, which means nothing else than system. The whole name, 社会信用体系, can therefore be translated into the social credit system but also social trust system. That makes a huge difference in understanding the concept from Asian perspective. In the next episode, we are going to focus on the functioning of the social credit system as well as black and red lists. Stay tuned.